Today we will be sculpting a whimsical frog using white model magic. If you do not have white model magic, you can certainly try this with a different type of air dry clay, and if you have color clay, then the color will be built in. Because we're using white model magic, we are going to be letting this sit for 24 hours, and then on the next day we will be adding some color to the finished product. So, to begin, we're going to go over our supplies. So we have model magic, we have some toothpicks, a pen, scissors, and a craft stick. So the toothpicks, craft stick, and pen are mostly for adding details. The scissors are primarily for opening the pouch, but are also a great tool when using model magic to portion out the clay. The first piece we are actually going to roll into a sphere. So we're going to soften it up a little and then roll it on a flat surface until we get a smooth sphere. Once you are happy with it, set it aside. This is where the scissors come in really handy because they are great for portioning model magic clay. So for the remaining parts of our whimsical frog, we are going to need 2 eyes, 2 back legs, and 2 front legs. So the eyes, we're going to cut and portion this into 2 pieces. And then for the legs, we are going to actually portion. The back legs have 2 parts and the front legs have 1 part each. So this will be for our back legs and this will be for our front legs. And then let's move these all aside. And what we're going to do is roll each one of these into a sphere. All right, so we have our main sphere, which is the body of the frog. And the first thing we're going to be doing is adding the eyes to the top. So we're taking the smallest pieces we have, which are these, and we're going to attach them to the top of the body. If this was earthenware clay, we would be scoring and slipping, but for model magic, and if you're using an air dry clay like Play-Doh, usually it will attach with just pressing them against each other, and then once you've done that, you can't really reposition them. So make sure you have this positioned where you want it, and then gently press your eyes where you'd like them to be. Now we're going to be adding the back legs. So we're going to take our 2 larger pieces and press with our palms to flatten them just a little bit. And those go on either side of the body. The remaining pieces are also going to be flattened. Two of these become the back legs. And 2 become the front legs. And that is the way the front of the frog looks, back of the frog. Now is when we get to add some details. So first thing we're going to do is use a toothpick to create a little bit of an indent for where the frog's mouth will be. You can use the same toothpick or a craft stick and you can add some indents for toes. For the eyes, I like using the pen because it creates an interesting design. And we can use the toothpick again to create more of an eyelid going over the frog's eye. And that is our frog. When this is dry, we'll come back and we'll do some painting on it. We're back with our little frog, which actually was left to dry for 2 full days. It's still a little bit soft, but it's definitely firm enough that we can now add some color to it. Now, if for some reason after your frog has been sitting to dry, if any of these pieces get loose or fall off, you could always use some Elmer's glue all and glue it back on. It works really well to reattach Model Magic. So I'm going to be using a combination of watercolors and water-based markers to finish my example frog. First I'm going to use the watercolors and then the paint will dry, and then once it's dry we'll switch over to markers. So here is the paint part, and this particular Crayola set is the Crayola Education Watercolor Mixing Set. So it might look different than some other sets you've seen because this is a set specific for mixing colors. So we're going to be using the mixing color set to mix up a shade of green. Whenever I mix colors, I always start with my lighter color first. So for the combination to make green, it's blue and yellow, I'm going to start with yellow first. Once the color is mixed, you're just going to paint your frog. Okay, so we're going to give our little frog a minute or two to dry and then come back with the markers. And before we do that, I'm going to show you how to clean up your paint palette. The easiest way to clean your paint palette, in my experience, is to use a wet and a dry paper towel or napkin. And the first thing I'm going to clean is actually any paint that may have got muddied. So like this yellow paint that's now a little bit green and this blue that has a little bit of yellow in it, I can easily take some of the paper and just clean it off by blotting it. And then use the remaining wet paper towel to clean the palette area. And then wipe the palette area dry. And now it's important to note that the paint still has some water moisture on it, and when you leave these to completely dry, you should leave them open like this until the paint has a chance to fully dry out. Otherwise you can soften your paint and potentially even get some mold in your paint. So always leave watercolors open to dry after you've used them. So for the blue, the first thing I'm going to do is color inside the eyes. So I'm going to tip my frog so that I can easily color inside the eyes just by coloring in there. And I could do this also with watercolors if I had wanted to. I just feel like there's a little bit more control of the color with the marker. But I can also use my wet watercolor brush on water-based marker, and that will cause that marker to spread. And then I can use my paper towel to blot out any of the excess. So I could do that. And then I can use the black to go back in and make a pupil for the frog. With the dark green, I can use the dark green around the mouth area. And also, if I want to add any spots to my frog, I can use the marker for that. I can use the dark green to also add some depth to the lines I made for the toes. And there you go. You have a frog made out of Model Magic, finished with paint and marker. And you can even seal this after it's fully hardened. You can seal it with an acrylic gloss medium, matte medium, spray gloss, Mod Podge, or even if you're doing this at home and you don't have any of those art materials, you can use clear nail polish. So any of those would work to finish off your clay frog. If you don't want to use watercolors or markers and you have acrylic paint at home, acrylic paint is even better. And with acrylic paint, you don't really even need a sealant because the acrylic paint itself will give a nice hardened surface when it's dried. So there it is. Hope you enjoyed making this frog.